Well, actually, I think that's it. There's nothing else to talk about, is
No, no, there is nothing.
Yeah. There's definitely
we
not something
should-
that I have so much to say about.
Oh,
Okay, yeah. Of course, we're wrapping up with Joker 2, Folie, Deux, whatever. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce it. I don't know if I really care. It was a movie that was made, guys. That movie exists, and we will get into it
it
at the end of the
exists.
episode. Yeah, holy shit.
And it's not exactly you can have your chance to see it. There's plenty of seating available.
Although I will say you might want to rush to a theater because I the way it's going, this thing might go to streaming like fast. Like here, Bobby, give you an idea. You remember how big a bomb the Marvels was? They made a big deal about how big the Marvels bombed. So the Marvels had an opening weekend of 45 million. You want to know what Joker 2 has?
$4.
37. All right, and that leads us to yeah, actually we're done.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about it. It stunk. It was bad.
Okay, so actually
man.
we could really kind of dive into this because I actually think it's interesting because I feel like with Megalopolis and this, I feel like we got 2 weeks literally in a row of filmmakers kind of pushing themselves to the point where they're just not good anymore.
Yeah.
Just okay. So obviously we're on Joker, Folie, Deux, Joker 2, whatever. Let me go ahead and get some positives out of the way. Joaquin Phoenix is solid once again.
Yes.
I like Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn.
As did I.
Brendan Gleeson as the guard. Pretty much the acting here is all great because you got Brendan Gleeson as the guard, who's just a piece of shit. But like there's moments where you like him, and moments where it's like, God, he's a piece of shit. And then Catherine Keener is the lawyer. The acting is good all around. Yeah, I'm trying to struggle for any other positives. Are there any other positives you can think of, Bobby?
We got another character in Batman lore introduced in this, and it was a different take on that character, which I'm happy about that.
Yeah, no,
we got Harvey Dent in this one.
Yeah, I was about to say Harvey Dent. Well, we got Harvey Dent and Harley Quinn, but yeah.
Yeah. But like, there's rarely much Harvey Dent that we get to see as he's always Two-Faced, or we see the quick progression of it.
Yeah.
Like, I think the only time that we've only gotten Harvey Dent was in Gotham.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
and of course the animated series, but live action. I mean, that portrayal is chef's kiss. This I like to see him being the asshole.
Yeah.
But
just to break away for a moment on a side note, like there was that explosion at the end of this movie in the courthouse, and I was semi-expecting when they cut to Harvey Dent to see half his face burned off. They're like, oh god damn it.
Just a little scarred, and it's like, what the yeah, I almost left at that point.
Stop it. Okay, so I'll be honest. I know lots of people are theorizing this is Todd Phillips just tanking this thing because he doesn't want to do it anymore. I think to a degree you can say that, but like
you can tell.
To be honest, I don't know. To me, the direction shows a lot of effort, but what it also shows is that he's not capable of doing this type of movie because this is. I mean, it's for a musical. There's not a whole lot of musical numbers, and the musical numbers are some of the most uncreative thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, there's I want to say like there's the courtroom one and the game show one, which I felt like were kind of creative. And then the rest were just kind of just thrown out there. And it's almost tough to describe. They're so fucking random.
Yeah, and it kind of got to the point where I was feeling like if they really wanted to go this musical route, they should just commit to it and just not be as sporadic. Oh, I
Dean,
don't know.
it's not even. No, I would argue
No.
it's not even close. It's way less
No.
creative than Moulin
Way
Rouge.
less. Like it's more forced than it was
Oh
in
yeah.
Moulin Rouge. It's about as forced as it is in like Chicago, but it's
and
in Chicago.
I get what he's doing with the story because like it's introduced with Lady Gaga's in the Glee Club. She's singing a song, and then he gets introduced to her. And then once he's introduced to her, he starts singing all over the place. And it's like, okay, so like obviously it's like he's with Harley and he likes her, and she's bringing light into his life, and that's why he's singing and dancing. And listen, while we're talking about Arthur Fleck singing, I would definitely say my favorite of the musical numbers was the courtroom one. But there's a reason why they didn't share that one and shared the weird tap dancing one they did.
Let's build it. Mountain, mountain, build a mountain, 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 build a mountain,
and that's because Joaquin Phoenix, talented actor, and he puts his all into the singing stuff. He's not a great singer. I'm sorry. And listen, I'm not a great singer either, but
he did better when he emulated Johnny Cash.
That is true. He did do that.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, doing the Arthur Fleck. I guess maybe he was trying to do Arthur Fleck singing.
Or himself, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, like, so there's only two characters that really do the sing through this. It's Arthur Fleck and Harley Quinn, and goddamn like Lady Gaga. It's obvious like I think she's a solid actress, but she's obviously also cast because she can actually belt it, and it does stand out next to Joaquin Phoenix, where it's like, she had to unlearn singing for the movie. They're not meant to be good at it. Well, I thought she was great in singing in the movie, honestly. But yes.
This movie was not really good. I went to an early afternoon showing of this today, and I was the only person in that theater.
Well, I went last night, and I want to say there was like 3 or 4 people. And we brought up the box office earlier. Like this movie was supposed to be huge.
Yeah.
And I remember when Deadpool and Wolverine came out and broke all the R-rated records that Joker 1 set. I remember being like, okay, let's see if it holds on to those records or if Joker 2 takes them away. And now it's like Deadpool and Wolverine's got it for the foreseeable future.
Oh yeah.
It's not going anywhere. It is just kind of shocking. So the storyline of this movie, to actually break it down. So obviously, Arthur Fleck's in prison. He meets Harley Quinn. She lights up his life, but also like he's going to trial. Catherine Keener is his lawyer, and she's doing this. She wants to do a split personality defense. Yeah. Which is weak sauce immediately, but okay, and that it'd be one thing, like, because okay, so at the very beginning, this opens with an animated cartoon, a Joker cartoon done in the Warner Brothers style, and I'll be 100% honest, I thought that was a really creative idea. Unfortunately, that cartoon fucking sucks, but it's a creative idea. I like the idea of opening up something so dark like this with something kind of bright and colorful, and but yeah, the actual cartoon kind of sucked. But the cartoon kind of introduced the idea of maybe like there's a Joker and Arthur and they're different people. And that's the most this is explored outside of the stuff the lawyer says, because never outside that is it really explored that they're different people. Because I mean, they're not. I mean, the if the movie wanted to try to sell us that, which it seemed like at times it did, it could have, essentially retconned it a bit. Essentially said, kind of explained, Arthur kind of blacked out when he killed people, so he wasn't, he remembered it, but like he wasn't really there. They could have retconned it there if they wanted to try to trick the audience, but they don't even try that. So the big reveal of the movie doesn't even work as a reveal because they don't even try to convince the audience of it. So, and yeah, so like it's a courtroom. That's another thing. So this is a courtroom movie, and as far as I can tell, like Arthur's defense is dreadful. Catherine Keener is doing the best she can with the multiple personality stuff, but spoiler alert, and we've already spoiled a bit, but like he fires her like midway through and then does the rest and defends himself in fucking Joker makeup, which is, I'm shocked the judge allowed that. There's literally a scene where he's sitting in there in full Joker makeup and he's like, I will allow this just for this. It's like, what judge allows that? The fuck?
Exposition, man.
The
Exposition.
Fuck? No. That's not it. Oh my god. So I mean, there's also like I brought up in when we talked about the first Joker how Arthur's an unreliable narrator. Yeah, and we can argue we don't know what's real here. There's obviously the final meeting he has with Harley on the stairwell, which I'm pretty sure that's not real, based on what we know. But I will say I almost kind of like the ending, because the ending is him kind of accepting responsibility. And that's the thing. So like if they decide to try to lean into the split personality stuff and then have the ending actually be Arthur to be like, no, it was me. It was me. I have to be honest with myself. It was me, which is kind of the ending they do, but like without the buildup, it doesn't work. But if they did the proper buildup, then did that ending, it would be like, okay, cool. This is Arthur maturing. This is Arthur saying, what I did wasn't fucking good at all. And I should pay a price for that. But yeah, I guess don't worry. Big spoilers. Pretty much everybody's dead at the end of this one.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's not.
Well, I mean, they can continue it, I guess.
Well, I mean, since he's an unreliable narrator, yeah. Because I mean, we saw Harley put a gun to her head, but we didn't see her pull the trigger, and then we see her talking later. I'm pretty sure she's supposed to be dead, but they could always just say she's not. It's like in this movie, they say he killed 5 people, and then he's like, they don't know about my mom. There are 6, but but in the original Joker movie, there's actually 7 because there's a therapist at the end where he's talking to her, and then he walks out with bloody shoes.
And I know one thing. Each time I find myself.
And yeah, so they're essentially saying that one didn't happen, which is fine. He's an unreliable narrator.
Well, yeah, but
so I guess they could do a Joker 3, but please fucking don't. This is.
Well, I don't know how they would. He ends up getting knifed in the end.
Yeah. Well, again.
But then again, we also see that person laughing maniacally and slicing open his cheeks. Mm-hmm. So.
Listen, I will say this. This is a lot like Megalopolis, where filmmaker is pushing himself to something he probably shouldn't be doing, but I don't know, part of me appreciates it, even though I absolutely do not recommend.
And I'll be honest,
especially this movie, honestly.
And I'll be honest, like the first one, I felt it was overhyped, and I'm not the biggest fan of. It's okay at best.
Yeah,
and that's just my opinion of it. So
no, like
I don't think it needed a sequel.
I've always maintained that the first one, I think the first one is a good movie. It is not this brilliant art piece that people will make out to be.
No,
it's a solid, well done movie.
And it does have its fans and its loyalists, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Absolutely fine.
Mm-hmm.
Just not a fan.
Yeah, and this I don't think this one's getting a fan base because the reviews are completely panning it, and I get it. And I will say, like, I don't think this is like the worst movie I've ever seen by any means, but it's bad. It's
It is
definitely
bad.
bad.
It's bad.
Um,
Woof.
well, at least it doesn't. At least it doesn't put in a random grape scene out of nowhere.
That's true.
Oh, wait a minute. That was such a curveball too. I was like, wait, are we doing this? Okay.
Like,
All right.
What? Oh, okay.
I don't think this is necessary, but whatever. Sure. But anyways, what I plan on doing now is let me look up stuff because I just kind of want to see the the chud reaction to Joker 2 a bit. I guarantee you they're giving it bad reviews because fun fact, it's a pretty bad movie. Kind of interested how long this is. Okay. So I guess we'll go ahead and dive into this right here. Nerdrotic, Joker 2 review. Is he making his thumbnails a little bit less cringe? Because this doesn't look as cringe as normal. It's Nerdrotic, but I guess there's no muscle. Like, he didn't feel the need to put Lady Gaga in there with muscle ladies or anything. So I guess it's a little different, but yeah. Anyways, it's a little 8-minute review. I'm sure Folie destroys Joker. I kind of don't know. I mean, it's never like the Joker movie was never really a Joker. Like it's an alternate universe Joker. So let's see what the chud reaction is to this movie.
Nerdrotic.com.
Greetings, you over 1 million Hellions and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet. 5 years ago, in the before times, prior to the horrid government response to COVID,
Yes. Was the government response to COVID good? No, it wasn't. I agree with that. But it wasn't for the reasons I guess listen, I don't know exactly what Gary would say, but I know the right-wing response to it. So about, it should have been, we shouldn't have had lockdowns or anything. And Gary, I've seen him do some, he doesn't do direct COVID denial, but he definitely hints at it pretty severely.
it's been 3 months without late night television, no Jimmys, no Stephen Colbert, with bangers like this.
There was Alpha, then Delta, then Omicron X, but this latest variant might be the best. It's XBB.1.5.
I'm not a fan of Jimmy Fallon. What's your point? Is your argument, hey, I don't like Jimmy Fallon, therefore writers shouldn't get paid and on-air talent shouldn't be paid? That's not a good argument, man.
I would like to remind you, dear viewer.
God, I'm not even focused. He's doing anti-vax shit by making fun of that. So they're just talking about doing the vaccine here, which it's a dumb joke, I'll give you that. But obviously Gary's choosing this because his fans are going to be anti-vax, and yeah. So yeah, let's go ahead and just get over this.
To the Summer of Love, prior to the Hollywood strikes and shutdown, a little film drop called Joker, a movie absolutely nobody asked for, which is essentially a solo origin story of a Batman villain who's never had one or needed one. And if you recall, prior to the film's release, it was quite controversial. And this had everything to do with the corporate access media who was trying to will something into existence by gaslighting the world and pushing the narrative that this film would somehow lead to incel violence.
Security concerns surrounding the new Joker movie.
Gary, this was concerned, not really because of incel violence. This was concerned because of what happened at The Dark Knight, bro. Do you not remember the theater shooting in Aurora? If you don't bring that up, that's just fucking ridiculous, dude. That's a big reason why they were concerned. A person was inspired by the Joker in The Dark Knight and did a theater shooting in Aurora. No, wait, that's right. It wasn't The Dark Knight. They were inspired by the Joker and did the theater shooting for Dark Knight Rises. for like the premiere night. That's why people were concerned about this movie. It's right there. And
The FBI, the LAPD, among those taking action.
Concerned that the new Joker movie could be used as an excuse for a mass. Authorities are taking every precaution to keep moviegoers safe.
In New York, police were on high alert at a special screening at the Lincoln Center on Wednesday night. There was also
Gary, if you don't bring up the actual fucking theater shooting, that's insanely irresponsible.
heightened security here in LA.
When in truth, at the time, the only violence that was happening in movie theaters was for Frozen 2. Interestingly.
Wow, Gary, you are so fucking dishonest. They were concerned about Joker because there was somebody inspired by the Joker in The Dark Knight to do a theater shooting in The Dark Knight Rises. It was very fucking famous. Holy shit.
Enough, that's the same corporate media just a few months later that was saying all the actual violence was mostly peaceful. But thanks to the controversy, it propelled a pretty damn...
Okay. Gary. I love how he uses his words. Saying violence is peaceful. No, nobody said the violence was peaceful. The violence, by definition, is not peaceful. The protests were overwhelmingly peaceful. Protests aren't 100% controllable. Yes, some were violent. And that is unfortunate, but it was the biggest protest movement in the history of the United States, bro. There's going to be some offshoots that won't go perfectly. But was for the massive size it was overwhelmingly peaceful. And yes, the violence wasn't peaceful because it was violence by fucking definition, Gary. I like the way you use your words there.
Damn good movie that we didn't know we needed, Joker into the stratosphere, earning over $1 billion at the box office despite having some things going against it, including it being a rated R film, it wasn't released in China, and the top corporate critics, particularly on Rotten Tomatoes, giving it a 49%. Quick reminder, these are the corporate...
I like how he was talking about how nobody wanted this movie, but he's also talking about how now people are praising it. It's a weird double standard, Gary. But anyways, let me go ahead and pull up the Joker on Rotten Tomatoes because he's screenshotting a very specific time period for that review. Because Joker, go ahead and pull up the numbers. 99% positive Joker has positive reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. They aren't glowing reviews, and I think that's appropriate because Joker is not an amazing movie. It's a solid movie. It's a very solid movie, but it's not mind-blowing or anything. Joker is sitting at 68% critic score. 68%. That's not the 49% you were just presenting. You were just screenshotting a random moment in history when it was rotten. But the overwhelming critic scores are at 68%. They've been that for years, Gary. Years. The movie's 5 years old.
Pushing the narrative that the audience lacks me.
Well, you see, obviously Gary's pushing the narrative because he's trying to push the narrative right now that everybody was against this movie. And overwhelmingly, this movie got decent reviews. They weren't glowing reviews, but they were decent reviews.
Media literacy these days when they clearly showed their misperceived political bias. And Joker went on to win Academy Awards, including a well-deserved Best Actor award for Joaquin Phoenix. And on top of that, DC, along with Warner Brothers, that was still reeling from the Snyder-ocalypse, finally got a win. They captured lightning in a bottle. It's a shame Warner Brothers is America's dumbest company and didn't make that much money off it. No one can argue that a lot of people like the Joker, including yours truly, as
I don't know what he means by they didn't make a lot of money off of it, but okay.
a one-off, as in Elseworlds. It was a slow burn that led to an open ending that was meant to be debated till the end of time, until now. Because Joker Folie.
Okay, so real quick, I kind of agree. Gary, the first Joker he's set up as a unreliable narrator. I brought this up before. There is a theory that essentially he dies. Like there's that scene where he puts himself in the fridge, and the whole there's a theory that the whole point of that scene is that he goes in there, he just locks himself in there and dies. And the rest of the movie is like this fantasy, and it almost makes sense if you think of it that way. Because at first when I heard that, I thought that was silly, but then when you watch the movie and you think of it that way, that's when all the stuff starts happening. Like he gets the call for the talk show, like everything just falls into place after that moment. And it's like, maybe it is supposed to be him dying. Now, of course, if they do a sequel, you can't do that. There's some stuff that you saw in the Joker where they decide in the sequel, okay, that did happen, that didn't. Obviously, he didn't die in the fridge. Now he did go to Murray Franklin, he killed Murray Franklin, but there's some stuff that didn't happen. Like if you remember the end of the first Joker, he goes to see that therapist right at the end, and then you see him walking out with bloody shoes, kind of implying that he killed her. That didn't happen. So I mean, if you want to say, it's kind of meant to be a one-off and they shouldn't do a sequel, I don't know if I would say they shouldn't do a sequel, but yeah, it was definitely meant to be a one-off, and upon seeing the sequel, maybe it should have stayed that way. But like, it's one of those things where it's like, if they're inspired to do a sequel, go ahead. But yeah, upon seeing it, it didn't seem like it felt like. Here's my guess towards the sequel. Todd Phillips didn't want to do it, but they paid him a lot of money to do it, and he said, "Okay, fuck it, I will do it, but I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want with it." And they said, "Okay, cool." And he decided, "Fuck it, I'm going to push myself and make a musical." And part of me appreciates that he decided to push himself and make a musical. And honestly, like learning, like when I learned that it would be a musical, that was the only time I was interested in the Joker sequel. So I was like, okay, that's wild. That's batshit. Let's see what you're cooking. And kind of what he cooked was not great. I think, frankly, he tried, but like, I don't think Todd Phillips really understands musicals enough to really sell them, frankly. Because the musical numbers were really fucking weak and frequently unnecessary. Anyways, we'll see what Gary says.
Deux, which I'm going to call Joker 2 for the rest of this video, answers a lot of those questions definitively. And now that I've seen it, it answers another big question. Did Joker need a sequel? No, which sucks because I know a lot.
Agreed. Gary, I agree. You've said so much bullshit, but I will agree with you on this one point. Joker 2. Joker did not need a sequel. Agreed.
Along with a lot of other people, I was looking forward to this one, and it's not to say it isn't well made. It's well shot, well directed, well acted.
I agree again. It actually is well shot. Like that's why I think Todd Phillips gave it his all. He just isn't really built for musicals because it's well put together. It just doesn't work.
The score is good. Mind you, I said the score and not the musical bits because yes, it's a musical of sorts, and that's the worst part in it. I won't go as far as to say.
Now listen, I've seen clips where Gary talks about how much he hates musicals. So that everything he says about musicals has to be taken with a grain of salt. That being said, while musicals not my favorite genre, I do enjoy quite a few of them. Yeah, the musical numbers are quite weak here. Very, very weak.
Joker 2 would have been good without the musical scenes, but it would have been better. It essentially turns into a musical court drama. Now,
I don't know if it would have been better. I guess maybe, but it's a weak movie overall. It's weak. I don't know about that.
The first half of the film, we follow Arthur Fleck as he does.
I mean, the thing is, I guess the musical numbers do something different with it. It's so fucking weak. It's tough to describe. Yeah. I don't know about that take.
His time in Arkham after being charged with 5 of the 6
Blackwing Gaming, there are like, honestly, like, just because I was looking up Rachel Ziegler the other day, there's the original West Side Story, which is an excellent movie. It's a great remake of Romeo and Juliet. And then there's, I want to say 2021, Steven Spielberg released his remake, and it's actually fucking better. It's like, so like That's a great musical. There's some great musicals dive in. One of my all-time favorite comedies is a 1960s movie called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to a Forum. It's a musical, and it's hilarious.
I want you to be there when I tell them about you. Tell them what about me? I have nothing to fear. I am a pillar of virtue. It might be of interest that their pillar of virtue, their slave-in-chief, has secreted in the confines of his cubicle Rome's most extensive collection of erotic pottery. When did you acquire that large fruit bowl with the frieze of the...
Yeah, musicals are not my favorite genre, but there are plenty of musicals I love. There are musicals I've put with my all-time classics. Don't get discouraged just because a movie is a musical. There are some fucking great musicals out there. Oh, Hedgehog Nerd? It depends on the movie. 100% it depends on the movie. Yes. So I think Lindsay Ellis talks about this. So there's diegetic and non-diegetic musical numbers when you're watching a musical. Diegetic means it's happening in the story. Non-diegetic means it's separate from the story. So it's almost like the story takes a pause and they do a musical number. Like if you watch something like Chicago, which is fine. It's not one of my favorites, but it's fine. Most musical numbers in there are non-diegetic, but like now watch something like Joker 2. Joker 2 is actually interesting because some of them are diegetic and some of them are non-diegetic, and it gets really fucking confusing. I'd say most are non-diegetic, but there's a couple that are definitely diegetic where it's like, okay, that's what we're going for. But yes, there are plenty of musicals where the musical numbers will push the story along. And yeah, it's kind of an alternate universe where like people will break into song and push the story forward through song. But you know, it's movies, it's alternate universe stuff. You know what? You guys want to know a secret about me? I'm a Beatles fan. I've never once sat down and watched one of their movies. So I've never seen the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which, by the way, fantastic fucking album. I love that album.
Murders he committed in the first film. And after a promising opening animated sequence set to the song Me and My Shadow, just like its predecessor, it looked...
I actually don't like the opening animated sequence. I like the idea of the opening animated sequence. I think it's a clever idea. The actual sequence was kind of nowhere though. That's my opinion. We're throwing opinions out at this point. It doesn't really matter too much.
Looked like we were headed towards a slow burn that ended up fizzling out. And don't worry, there won't be any spoilers. Joaquin Phoenix does a fantastic job with what he is given.
True, although I think he's trying to sing in Arthur's voice because he can sing. I forgot that during the podcast. I was like, man, I didn't know Joaquin Phoenix really couldn't sing. Like, he can sing, but like his voice is really fucking nowhere. But then he brought up he does the Johnny Cash thing and Walk the Line. I was like, wait, he did. So obviously the poor singing, I guess, supposed to be Arthur Fleck style of singing. It's weak. But the good news is Lady Gaga is pretty good in it. So hey.
While playing Arthur Fleck, who, for the vast majority of this film, is incarcerated, while trying to strategize his defense with his lawyer, played by Catherine Keener, who is really trying to push with Arthur and the prosecution that the Joker is a separate personality within Arthur Fleck. While in Arkham, he meets Lee Quinzel, who at one point is called Harley, played by Lady Gaga. Now, there were some rumors that Joker 2...
Lady Gaga, I don't know why you're pronouncing it weird. Pretty sure everybody knows it's Lady Gaga. It's she took her name from the Queen song Radio Gaga. I mean,
would be from Harley Quinn's perspective, but that is not the case. This is an Arthur Fleck film. That being said, Lady Gaga did a good job playing Harley Quinn as she was.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a great Harley Quinn, but Lady Gaga does a good job. I don't know why he's pronouncing the name really weird though.
Meant to be portrayed, a fangirl who is obsessed with the Joker. And the rest of the cast isn't too shabby either. Brendan Gleeson as a slightly rapey Arkham guard.
Yeah. Oh God, I'm agreeing with Gary too much. Yes, I thought the cast did a good job.
Harvey Dent's in it, and there's a great scene with little Gary from the first film. So if all this was good, what went wrong? Well, everything else. I like.
Yeah. Jesus Christ, I'm agreeing with Gary way too much in this review. You know, maybe he can actually do an like, okay, so real quick, this beginning bullshit where he was whining about like, oh, the news reporter was complaining about like there might be shootings at the Joker, and it's ignoring the Aurora shooting, which is really fucking dishonest, Gary. But like, cut out that beginning part, and if you just go to the regular review, I might kind of agree with this video a hell of a lot more. Well, Dean, I feel like that's not necessarily conservatives. That seems to be kind of Gary's thing. He loves to make fake names and shit for people. It's obnoxious.
Todd Phillips as a director, and I understand what he was trying to do, and I even respect trying to do something a little different. But everything he did to build up Arthur Fleck into the Joker is completely undone. While the presence of the Joker is still there, we're right back to pathetic Arthur Fleck. The unreliable narrator is still in Joker 2. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's subtle, but most of the time I just didn't care because it wasn't as good as it was with Sophie in the first film. For example, with Lady Gaga's Lee Quinzel, there are times where she is acknowledged by characters in the film, and there are other times where it's questionable.
So he keeps on calling her Lee Quinzel, which is what she was credited in the movie, and she is called Lee. But I'm 99% sure there's a point in the movie where they say her full name. It's Harleen Quinzel, which, yeah, that would be her name.
And it's up to you to figure that out if you want to see it, because those interesting moments are far and few between. Again, while the Access Media said the Joker would lead to incel violence, I can definitively say Joker 2 will lead to narcolepsy. That
Why the fuck, Gary? Like, you're talking about heaps. Like, that's the thing. Like, Gary, like, just review the Joker, and I might actually kind of agree with you. But you keep on dropping in about like, oh, they were trying to say the first Joker would lead to violence, and it's like you're ignoring the fucking Aurora shooting, bro. That's like huge.
Will occasionally and abruptly be interrupted with musical scenes that at their very worst are frustrating and at their very best are mid. The ones that aren't in Arthur's head are
like I said, I think there's one musical scene, the courtroom scene, I thought was good. What holds it back is that is pretty much an Arthur solo scene, and we have to deal with Joaquin Phoenix's voice. That being said, that was the one scene where they're embracing the musical number, they're using the set to its full extent. There's this bit that's really kind of messed up, but works for a Joker musical, where he takes this cartoonish, well, it's cartoonish size, but it's not like a literal cartoon hammer. But like, he takes a hammer, he bashes Harvey Dent in the skull, then he uses his blood to do the Joker face, and it's like, oh, that's dark. I kind of like that. And it, like, the whole set is lit like, fucking dark courtroom with red lighting. It's actually set up like a musical scene, and it's well done. And there's like almost no musical scene set up like this. All the musical scenes are almost just like randomly dropped in and feel weird. And that was the one where it's like, okay, Todd Phillips is onto something with this one fucking scene.
performed in a muted way, kind of like this.
I'm here with my dad, so I'm here now. I found you.
You mean like he did in the first movie? Because that's the Arthur Fleck character.
Daddy, guess what? I love you. I love you. I love you.
Well, I mean, I never thought about that way, but yeah, the Will Ferrell's Elf isn't too far off from Arthur Fleck. Honestly, it just, this is comedy. This is sold as comedy, and the other one's sold as a drama. But yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
That was weird.
You know, I just realized that could be the scene between Arthur and Thomas Wayne from The Joker.
I agree.
Anyway, the musical bits that are in Arthur's head are better, but the only memorable thing about them is the sets. And now that I come to think of it, the best word to properly describe Joker 2 is frustrating. And it's not just because every time this film feels like it's starting to go somewhere, they break into song and stop it dead in its tracks, when they could have used that time to do more with Lady Gaga's Harley Quinn. And this is kind of a surprise because I would argue she's underused in this. No, the single most frustrating thing is the complete deconstruction of Arthur Fleck, because essentially it's just Arthur facing the consequence.
Oh, you see, I actually kind of like the ending. I wish they could have, the ending was, you see the ending coming a mile away, and they could have like distracted us, and maybe there was ways in the story where they could have written it so that way we don't know quite what the ending's coming. But the ending is essentially Arthur kind of coming to grips with himself that frankly he's kind of a pathetic dude, and yeah, he's a murderer, and he should probably come to face what he's done.
Of his actions playing the Joker. It's character assassination through character reversion. Arthur Fleck is right back where he was at the beginning of the first movie, and I understand.
No, I wouldn't go there. He's, because he's done terrible crimes since the first movie. He's not right back to where he was. He's kind of looking at what he's done throughout the however long the first two these movies are supposed to take place over. He's looking at that and realizing kind of that he is a monster, and he confesses to his crimes, and he's prepared to face full penalties for it. Yeah.
And that's the entire point of the film, and I also understand it didn't work for me at all. This brings us to the predictable ending that they gave away pretty early on. Something Todd Phillips himself.
Now, I think it's worth. God, you bounding into fucking comics? Really, Gary? What a great fucking source. Good work. But anyways, so it doesn't surprise me that Gary doesn't like the ending, because if we were actually break down the ending, what it is like Gary and his fans love the first Joker because it was, this it's weird. It was like this incel chud anthem of a movie. It really was. And I personally thought it was decent, but like it didn't blow like there are people who talk about like it's the best fucking movie ever. And I was like, it's good. Like honestly, I always felt like the Joker, the original Joker, was an art movie for people who haven't watched art movies. So if you're just familiar with comic book movies and you've never like sat down in a film class and watched some art movies or gone to a film festival and seen some more movies, you'll sit down and watch Joker and just be mind blowing because you've never seen anything like that. I had seen many movies like that, and while Joker is a well done movie, it's nothing like brilliant or anything. It's just well done. But like the incel crowd loved it. They loved Arthur. They kind of idolized Arthur a lot, and frankly, Arthur was meant to be seen. Even if you watch the first movie, he's a mentally disturbed individual. He is messed up. Part of what caused him to collapse is essentially societal failings. He had a therapist who was helping him get by, who was also giving him medications. Then government funding falls out on that program, and he's too broke to get normal funding, so he just loses all that support. And as he loses that support, the world just is able to push him down further and further and further and further. And it's really a condemnation on the social services of our society in a lot of ways. This is not a read that Gary would take from this movie, even though it's very overtly in the script of the movie. It's right fucking there. Instead, they like to read that like this is a dude being pushed down by society, because, they just don't embrace, whatever, whatever. It's weird how they choose a Joker to be like this incel hero. But I do get the sense that Todd Phillips, part of the point of the ending of Joker 2 was to essentially say, yeah, this dude's a fucking loser. He just stumbled into doing some stuff, doing some semi-anti-hero stuff. People were really disrespecting him, and he ended up like, honestly doing some stuff they shouldn't be doing, but like, hey, he's fighting for his own place. And the point was, that was wrong. He shouldn't be doing that. And Todd Phillips was essentially saying with Joker 2, yeah, he's kind of a loser. He's kind of a fucked up loser. He's not the big hero you guys want. He's a loser. And if only the movie up to that ending had really worked to push that idea, it would have been a good movie, but it didn't.
knew would divide fans. And I think he's right. People will be talking about this one. Unfortunately for Warner Brothers, not as many as they'd like. Because it looks like Joker 2's early ticket sales are right on par with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Dysentery and The Flash. Oof. And considering the budget...
Actually, they were quite a bit lower. The Joker opening weekend pulled $10 million less than the Marvels. So, Gary, I think we should have since the Marvels bombed, we need to have a conversation about should we be doing women superheroes in comic book movies? Should we be doing that? Because, it's going to bomb. So guess what? Joker 2 does worse than that. So now we have to have a conversation about should we have white male superhero movies? Should we have that? I think that's fair. If we're going to have a conversation about the one, we should have a conversation about the other. Because that's the only, listen, we can't break down why these movies bomb into nuance. We can't talk about things like the fact that theaters are still recovering from COVID. We can't talk about how the strikes impacted this. We can't talk about the actual quality of the movie and word of mouth not being good. We can't talk about that. We just got to talk about the genders in the lead role. Because that's the only thing that impacts in box office. Right, Gary? Right?
From the well-known misogynist outlet, The Hollywood Reporter, box office bomb. The Marvels opening to $47 million to $52 million in new low for Marvel Studios. The movie's performance fuels the theory that superhero fatigue is real. Well, MCU fatigue is real.
Of course. I'm sure he's more than happy to dive into nuance on Joker 2, but not the Marvels. I'm sure.
Budget for Joker 2 was exactly $145 million more than its predecessor. Things aren't looking good. And if Warner Brothers is holding out for word of mouth, well, the sold-out fan IMAX screening I was in yesterday was dead silent when the movie ended. Joker 2 comes off as if it's a
Wow, you went to a sold-out screening? Because my screening was fucking empty. There's 4 or 5 other people there. It was pretty empty.
Apologetic for its predecessor. It's almost a troll. And for all I know, it is. Now, if it's Todd Phillips trolling Warner Brothers, respect. I can see him telling Warner Brothers, I don't want to do a sequel unless you give me a $200 million budget and I'm going to make it a musical. You're giving me the money? Of course the Access media is spinning it's a troll of the audience. Well, if that's the case, bold move, Warner Brothers, trolling the people who supported the Joker while the Access media was attacking you.
No matter if it's a troll or not, if it's a troll, the person responsible is Todd Phillips. I do think it's interesting how Gary was saying, hey, maybe it's Todd Phillips trolling the film studio. But then if it's a troll against the audience, all of a sudden it's the film studio trolling the audience. No. If it's a troll, it's Todd Phillips trolling. Period. End of story. It's either Todd Phillips trolling the movie studio or Tom Phillips trolling the audience. I personally stand by the idea upon watching this because I think actually this movie could be broken down and studied. It's interesting. But we could go ahead and discuss. I personally think Todd Phillips tried, but he didn't want to do this movie. He said, you know what, Warner Brothers, if you're gonna be like, I have to do this movie, go ahead. And I'm going to need X amount of money and we're going to do a musical because I've never done a musical before and I'm going to push myself and see if I can do a musical. And he couldn't. He frankly couldn't. I think he just pushed himself too far, and respect for that. It's good for artists to push themselves, but he didn't know what he was doing with that.
Ultimately, it's just a bad movie, and I think it's probably because Todd Phillips had never planned to make it, but was given so much money he couldn't say no. But
I guess it kind of depends on your perspective of Todd Phillips, because I imagine Gary's trying to act like Todd Phillips is like this brilliant fucking auteur filmmaker. In which case, if he is a brilliant auteur filmmaker, then the fact is that this is somewhat a troll. Then I actually don't think Todd Phillips is a brilliant auteur filmmaker. I think he's a decent, solid filmmaker, but not anything brilliant, which is why I think he just pushed himself too far and just couldn't carry the weight.
Keep in mind, if you decide to watch it, there's a very good chance that it will completely ruin the original for you. Just chalk this up as another lesson Hollywood won't learn.
I do think that's weird how Gary always likes to push the idea that future entries in franchises can destroy previous entries in franchises. Listen, I'm not a fan of the Matrix sequels. I guess Resurrections was okay, but I'm not really a fan of really any of them. And I still love the original Matrix. Game of Thrones season 8 was super fucking disappointing, but there are still brilliant seasons of Game of Thrones out there. Just because one entry sucks doesn't mean somehow you don't have the other ones to watch and can't enjoy them. If you once enjoyed them, you can still fucking enjoy them. Yeah, the holiday special ruins, dude. That's another entry. If the Star Wars holiday special doesn't ruin the entire fucking franchise, then I think it's safe to say we can separate entries from the entirety of the franchise, because that thing is awful. Maybe someday I will torture you guys and do a watch party of the holiday special. You know what? The next Christmas, I don't have my kids. I'll plan a special stream and we will torture ourselves and watch the holiday special, because I played around with that and I'm pretty sure nobody claims that shit. So I'm pretty safe to play it on YouTube. I will torture the shit out of you guys. that could be fun. I will regret it so fast once we start into that. I will regret it so fast. It's so bad. But no, I mean there is a point to that, because there's so many people who talk about like Obi-Wan Kenobi or The Acolyte being the worst thing ever produced by Star Wars, and it's like, you have no fucking idea. Oh my god, you have no fucking idea.
No, we don't need a sequel or a prequel to everything. We do not need an origin to every hero or villain. We do not need to know the time and place Martha and Thomas Wayne.
I agree.
Conceived Bruce. Unfortunately, the Joker 2 made the Joker into the story we were concerned about in the first place. A nihilistic, pointless, and meaningless peripheral Batman story set in the world of Batman without Batman.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the first movie was by itself anyway, Gary. So unlike most Gary videos, I actually agree with a lot of that, which was kind of shocking. But it is still very frustrating how outrageously dishonest he was, especially about the fucking, like, he prefaced it with the fucking, let's go to that real fast. Here we go. He prefaced it with this. Oh, guys, if you're enjoying the stream, make sure to like and subscribe. Awesome channels down below. But yeah, let's rewind this crap.
Narrative that this film would somehow lead to incel violence.
Security concerns surrounding the new Joker movie, the FBI, the LAPD, among those taking action.
Concerned that the new Joker movie could be used as an excuse for a mass authorities are taking every precaution to keep moviegoers safe.
In New York, police were on high alert at a special screening at the Lincoln Center on Wednesday night. There was also heightened security here in LA.
When in truth, at the time, the only violence that was happening in movie theaters was for Frozen 2.
All right, so he's acting like the news, they're being goofy over the Joker possibly causing violence. And then, yeah, he's just ignoring this.
Don, this is what law enforcement sources suggest now happened during this midnight movie. They believe the suspect came into the theater with a ticket, went out through an exit door to the right of the screen toward his car, which was parked just outside of that exit, and there they think that he geared up for the attack, and at approximately 12:37 or 12:38, he came back in. Now, what witnesses say they saw was at some point a canister was tossed in here, spraying gas into the room, some sort of tear gas or pepper spray. They say he fired into the ceiling first, and then this man who was wearing...
And that's so look at the time. It's 12:37. This was a midnight showing. After this, midnight showings no longer happen. When they do the preview showings, they do them at like 7 now. They don't do midnight showings at movie theaters anymore.
All black with a bulletproof vest and a gas mask on, started shooting into the crowd. Police will later say that he was using an AR-15 assault rifle, a Remington shotgun, and a .40 caliber Glock handgun. A lot of firepower, no matter how you look at it. 12:39. By this time, police say hundreds of calls are flooding into police headquarters to 911, and officers are racing to the theater. They find victims staggering through the lobby. They surround the place, call for more help. 12:42. Some witnesses say the gunman is still shooting inside. Officers urgently call for gas masks so they can get into Theater 9 because it's choking in there. At 12:46, at some point here, the witnesses say the shooter simply stops shooting and walks out the way he came in toward his car, and that's where the police grab him right outside. They say he still has 2 weapons on him. He's dropped one in the theater. They find another one inside his car. They also say, in addition to the vest and gas mask, he's wearing a ballistic throat protector and a groin protector, and he's wearing black tactical gloves. Simultaneously, officers flood into Theater 9 where they find a scene of unimaginable carnage. People shot in the head and the arm and the legs and the body, some of them children, some so hurt they couldn't even possibly run, some who can't even be moved. By 12:46, they have the suspect. They've gone to look at his apartment. They're seeing what they can do next, and they're transporting people to the hospital in their cars simply because there aren't enough ambulances to handle them all. Don?
So yes, Gary, the way he's talking about the fear of the shootings in for the Joker movie, he is outright ignoring that was all based because the Aurora theater shooting, because the guy modeled himself after the Joker and did a theater shooting in Aurora, Colorado for The Dark Knight Rises. And for Gary to talk about that and ignore that factoid is extraordinarily dishonest on his part. It's pretty fucking gross.
We'll get to that, but they're not talking about it mainly because it's their fault, and it also exposes that all the rest of their other narratives are bullshit. But actually, it's, DJ, I was just going to play your 8-minute video today because I didn't think you were going to be on here, because that video was excellent. How you broke all that down.
Yeah, where I went in and looked at all the white male failures over the last 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. I had a lot more, but I just wanted to use a few.
First one you went to, I was like, my man went to John Carter. Holy shit.
I thought like Disney, let me find something from Disney that had a white guy that failed, and that was one of the biggest ones. So,
well, I mean, we could go ahead and break this down, because here's the Marvels. As we all know, this is the biggest box office flop of all time. No movie is worse than the Marvels ever. Oh, wait a minute. Here's Morbius.
Yeah.
Starring a white guy. Jesus Christ. That's pathetic. Oh, here's Shazam too. Oh, that's even worse. And now we got Joker too. So, I mean, now, I mean, we always, like, whenever a movie starring a woman comes out and flops, we always got to discuss.
But wait a minute. Didn't last year we just have a massive movie called Barbie with a woman in it that did, like, amazingly well? I mean, I feel
Shut up. That's not that. No.
They're fucking audience, or they have goldfish memories. It's crazy.
We have all these movies starring white men that are bombing. Clearly, we got to ask how long Hollywood's going to conform to these white men. How long?
I know
how long will this keep on going? It
is very. What would Elon say? Interesting, or we should look into this, or
interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Go broke.
Yeah.
The thing is, I really like comparing the Marvels to Joker, because they're both, because Joker made $1 billion, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and so did
the Marvels.
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel, yeah.
Captain Marvel, yeah.
And so I think these two movies are a pretty good comparison, because when the Marvels came out, there was a lot of people doing the whole, I think we need to start having a discussion about the use of women in leading roles in massive franchises, but you just don't see that in any way now. Like, no one is saying, oh, well, except for us right now, because we're taking the piss out of it, right? But no one's saying, oh, we should try to reconsider the role of the white man in big franchises. Like, that's just not going to happen.
I am saying that. We should seriously sit down and have a discussion about this.
There were so many comments under my video that you could see they didn't watch my video, because I spent like the first half sort of playing that role, like saying this is why we shouldn't have white guys in leads or whatever. And then at the halfway mark, I'm like, all jokes aside, here is what's really happening. And they don't make it that far. So a lot of the comments are like, how stupid are you? And literally responses to that are, you didn't watch the video. And most of them didn't. They just came there to leave something.
Well, I mean, I did that tweet that got a lot of attention on Twitter. But essentially it was me. But I got a whole bunch of chuds debunking it. And I'm like, what's beautiful about this is that right now you're debunking your own fucking arguments on this stuff. You realize that, right?
I got into an argument with somebody under one of your tweets about like the Captain Marvel, and I know Dane, you jumped in on that a little bit too.
God,
I don't know what it's going to take for people to understand that marketing and placement of the film is part of the film itself. Like when someone makes a movie and they decide where the movie's going to go in the year, they decide how they're going to market the movie, what they're going to tie it to, how they're going to connect it to the other films, if there are other films.
So you mean like the because it only made $1 billion because it was between Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah.
It's like, well, okay, but how come Ant-Man and the Wasp didn't?
Right. Well, and when I said that, they said, well, which one had an end credit scene with tying it in? And I said, so you're saying an end credit scene equals $1 billion movie? And they were like, no. I said, well, then why did you even use that as a?
But
why
they
did you
both
say
have an
that?
end credit scene that ties in the movies.
Right, but I'm saying like that doesn't mean the movie's going to make $1 billion. Like an end credit scene doesn't equal $1 billion.
Well, and also Joker being the Joker, like it's not like it was just a movie that came out and nobody had any familiarity with it. Not only do they have familiarity with Joker, they have familiarity with fucking Taxi Driver and King of Comedy.
But even so, what does the Joker need to do to make people excited? It's the fucking Joker. Like this isn't Captain Marvel, a character that a lot of people who didn't read comic books had no idea who this was. The Joker is the fucking Joker. Like it's got a bigger platform and a launching pad than Captain Marvel ever had, regardless of whether or not it was teased in Endgame, because it's just, or Infinity War, because there is like the history of the Joker is directly connected to Batman, which is why so many people were upset that Batman wasn't going to be tied to these films. But at the end of the day, that movie directed by Todd Phillips, the guy who fucking said Hollywood is too woke, so I'm not going to be making comedies anymore. So that's number one. They got that guy in the bag. He came out and said the studios had nothing to do with this. There was no DEI. There was no forced feminism or anything like that in this movie. He made the movie that he wanted to make. He didn't even answer to James Gunn. He ignored James Gunn's notes. There was no test screenings for this movie. Like everything you could possibly want from a director-driven project happened with Joker 2.
So check this out. I found this article that says Todd Phillips told Variety for a cover story that the goal in making the sequel to 2019's Joker was to make it feel like it was made by crazy people. And that Joaquin Phoenix was constantly just like ripping up and throwing up pieces of the fucking script, and they would just like rewrite stuff in the last minute. You know, it's like they were not. Yeah, that's why it was a bad movie. I think. Yeah.
I mean, the reality is though, this is the kind of and then fucking Hollywood Reporter made a soften the blow article about Todd Phillips. Hang in there, Todd Phillips. And I'm like, y'all came after Dia DaCosta.
Yeah.
And all this other shit. You claimed there was fighting on the set and all this other bullshit when the Marvels was getting dogpiled. And you're like, oh, but we need to coddle Todd Phillips. Fuck you. Fuck your whole fucking magazine.
Well, here's the deal. Like,
it's like, what the fuck?
Here's Todd Phillips is part of the problem, because here's the problem. The problem is white men. Obviously, white men can't sell these movies. We need to.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll keep on.
No, it's. I know we're joking about it, but in that joke does lie a bit of that systemic problem when it comes to like white men and the privilege they have in media. Yes. Todd Phillips is getting coddled because he's a white guy, and he's also anti-woke, and that's why everybody's like, well, we're just gonna let's lift him up. I mean, it's okay. This happens to everybody. Francis Ford Coppola came out and like was giving him props about it. Oh, I'm so glad. Congratulations. It's like all of this stuff happens to him, but anytime someone in a marginalized community is in charge of a property, it's like never let them near the editing booth again. Never put them behind the camera again. Right. Never let them read a script again. This is the kind of stuff that happens to people who are marginalized. And this is why I say what I say about all this shit. It's why we all do it. This is the problem. Yes, everyone is capable of making a good film. Everybody is capable of making a bad film. That's not the argument that anybody's making. We are arguing about the entire cultural, like, the institution around this and how it works on social media and how people just run with it. There is a monetary reason why these guys, these channels, these outlets, these articles, these editorial places, there's a reason why they do these kinds of things, because there's money in it. And anytime somebody does something solely for money, you have to question the reasons behind that. And so you look back and you're like, well, maybe it isn't such a good idea to dogpile a woman who directed a movie that didn't perform well and immediately start saying that she has no talent.
Let me give because this is actually a fucking excellent point that you're bringing up here. Example rather. So yes, That happened. That happens all the fucking time.
Right.
That happens a lot. This is an
So,
article that
there's
fucking pointed
actually-
this out where really is something that just happens constantly. Like she had another film waiting to go, and she was going to do something else. Like
she actually explained in context. So like she stuck around for a while. Marvel's got pushed back multiple times, and she stuck around for a while. She was pushing back for other projects, and eventually it reached a point where she was going to lose that project. So she said, "Okay, I got to go do this other project."
But the way that it was,
and then they
was that she
shat
just,
on
like,
her.
said, "Fuck this,"
They
and
shat
left
on
the
her
fucking
for walking
post-production.
away. And it's
Again, also post-production, all the primary
Yes.
filming was done. Was done. On set stuff was done. We're talking about editing room stuff.
yeah, editing, sound.
Many cases, the director will check in on that thing, like, you know, that kind of thing. Maybe once a day, maybe once a week. Who knows? But, like, they're not always going to be there, right there every day. You know?
Sometimes you have directors that sit there and pretty much co-edit or might even edit themselves.
There's
Sometimes you have
also-
directors that just have editors that they trust, and
Yeah.
Marvel has their own editors. So probably Marvel just has their own editors working on shit.
Yeah, I mean, and there's also the reason why we have a team working on these movies is because there's no one person doing everything. That's ridiculous. Like she has other people working for her, or he would have other people working for him that are there to do their job as editors, as producer, all the people involved with it, light, sound, they all have jobs to do. She's not going to micromanage everything, but she will oversee the bigger portions of it. Meaning after they're done with some stuff, they would send it to her and say, "Hey, do you like this? Do you not like this?" That's the way that typically works. But the whole issue is that Todd Phillips is their dude. Like I said in my video, this is a guy who pretty much reflects the values that these guys have. He cut out scenes of queerness in Joker 2 that were improvised by Lady Gaga because he didn't want that to be in there. So he even took quote unquote woke stuff out of the movie. There's nothing in this movie inherently woke or feminist or
Isn't
any
there
of
like
these things.
some fucked up kind of implications about gay people or something? There's like sexual assault or some shit.
Yes.
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 That
Yes.
is the
So
one.
that's
that
the
is
other
one
thing.
potential gay part of the movie.
Yeah, and it shows gay people as bad people. So there's everything in this movie on paper does exactly what these guys are asking for. But all of a sudden, because it's failing, they have to come up with some sort of mythical reason why it's all of a sudden woke or something like that. It doesn't make any sense. They can't even explain why it's woke. They just keep saying it is. Todd Phillips had the studio didn't have anything to do with this. James Gunn didn't have anything to do with this. He literally made this movie the way he wanted to make it and said that it's a movie for the fans of Joaquin. So it is literally a vehicle for Joaquin Phoenix.
Lots of people are desperate to blame Lady Gaga in some way, and it's like, how? She was literally just a supporting character. What evidence do you have?
She did right. Like, okay, Bob, you've seen the movie, right?
Yes.
Okay. It feels to me like they took a bigger story that she had and just kind of reduced her to being a facilitator for things that Arthur did in the film. And
I
read the plot. I wanted because I'm not going to see it, so I wanted to see what it's about. I read what happens in it and stuff. That's pretty funny, the whole ending and everything. It's funny that there are people that are pissed off about it, but sorry, that's not what we're talking about. Sorry.
No. I mean, it's one of those things where Harley Quinn. Honestly, she could have been anybody in the movie. She didn't have to be Harley Quinn. She could have been a completely different character if they wanted her to be. There was nothing unique about her. Lady Gaga sounded good singing, but it's Lady Gaga. I mean, she's going to sound good singing.
Well, I mean, the only ones that sang were her and Joaquin Phoenix, and Joaquin Phoenix did not sound good. But but yeah, she sounded great.
It felt like one of those weird things where it's like, it reminded me of Furiosa, right? You remember how there was like this cope thing with Furiosa where the movie didn't commit any of the any of the woke sins that these guys would normally complain about, like girl bossing and all that. So they had to come up with a reason. And their reason for that movie was that we should have expected it, or people expected it to be woke because there was a woman in the lead. That was their thing, was like, this is what Hollywood has been giving us, so this is why that movie failed.
Yeah.
In regards to what were we going to say? Sorry.
I was just going to say that the whole argument with that movie was essentially, oh, well, it's a Mad Max movie without Mad Max. And that they just ran on that to the ground, ignoring the fact that it's a decent fucking movie.
This guy seems to be saying that because Todd Phillips wasn't doing a culture war thing, that means that the chuds aren't, doesn't apply to the culture war, basically.
All right. Okay. Phillips also said he made the movie despite, I haven't seen that quote, but I have seen that circulating. So I don't know if that's an actual quote. And I've read a lot about this movie. But even if he did that, even if that was the case, what does that have to do with stuff being woke when that's what they're saying? That's what the chuds are saying. I didn't say that Todd Phillips was actually the person making woke content. I said that is what they claimed this movie was.
Right.
I mean, we got Joker 2 this week, and then last week we got Megalopolis, and it just brought together because we brought Francis Ford Coppola. And in my mind, we have in 2 weeks 2 movies that I think should be talked about and studied, and not because they're fucking good, just because how the fuck was this created? What the fuck happened?
Which movie? What is that? What's coming out in 2 weeks?
Oh, Megalopolis. It was last week.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's just 2 filmmakers, in my opinion, that are pushing themselves further than they can go, and it fucking shows.
Yeah, I mean, this whole Joker 2 thing and what a lot of chuds are saying about it, it's another example of the good things are not woke and bad things are woke.
I want to say, I just looked this up. No, Todd Phillips did not say he did it despite people. A Twitter user said that. This is why you guys went, and no offense to who said this, but I'm just going to put this out there.
I say offense to that person.
Listening to what these channels are telling you without doing your own fucking research. The actual quote from Todd Phillips is, he's always been Arthur Fleck. He's never been this thing that's put upon him. The idea that Gotham people put on him that he represents. That is the quote that people are saying he admits to doing this out of spite. He never said that. That is something that the chuds are saying about him. Again, stop getting your news from these guys. Stop. I'm imploring you. If they say something that sounds sus, go fact check it. That took me 5 seconds to look that up. Fuck. This is so infuriating. It really is.
It's like,
I can't even have a conversation about anything without people bringing in disinformation.
You know, Joker should have been a standalone movie. And in one way, I kind of like do think it is a bit funny. I'm not going to really give any credit, but like, yeah, Joker should have been, it shouldn't have been made really at all. But like the fact that it was, and it made so much money and was so successful, okay. But then of course they're going to want another fucking movie. They want a sequel. Yeah. And in that way, Todd Phillips just kind of blowing this version of the Joker up is kind of funny to me.
It is.
It is kind of Joker-like when you think about it. That he's just like,
I am all for these Elseworld stories being ridiculous. I get it. I understand. The only thing that I want when I go to a movie is to feel like I was entertained, and this movie was boring to me. That is the problem. It was a very boring fucking movie. They could have done this story and made it interesting and made it exciting and done something with it, but it wasn't. It was like 2 hours, like most of that runtime was just pointless dialogue and exposition and recanting what happened in the first movie. I just didn't care.
I mean, we got those musical numbers, and here's the problem with the musical numbers. It's clear that Todd Phillips has no idea how to fucking handle a musical number, because there's nothing special about it. They just randomly start going into song. And there's a couple ones where it's like, okay, this is okay. For the most part, you just have characters going into song and then other characters just sitting around and watching. That's it.
Funny.
It's like, oh my God, this is nothing.
And there's no, and I'm trying to remember, I don't think there's any like big production numbers. It's mostly just Lee and Arthur performing. Most of them. Yeah. So
the best one for me was the courtroom scene one, and that's Arthur by himself. And
yeah,
there's a reason why they won't release that, because that's fucking Joaquin Phoenix, and his voice is not amazing in this.
Books, records, films, these things matter. Call me shallow. It's the fucking truth.